What's up, everybody? Toy Addict here, and today I am really excited because this is our 20th episode. It seems like just yesterday we started this Toy Addicts Anonymous live stream, and my buddy Carlos, the Badass Reviews, which him and I have been doing this show since we started. Unfortunately, he can't make it today. He's a little bit under the weather, but never fear, I got some awesome guests on here to join in the celebration and to hang with us today. We've got Mega J Retro. What's going on, man?
How's it going, everybody?
And Break Something. What's up, dude?
Hey, how's it going?
All
Happy to
right.
be here. Celebrate the 20th.
Thanks, guys. Thanks. And, before we know it, we'll be doing a 100th episode. So it's just, really exciting to do this. In the little time that I've been doing the show with Carlos, we've had some really cool guests on. We've been able to join in a lot of excitement, different things, different HasLabs, crowd funds, all sorts of things that have been going on in the toy community. And, just basically, it's just really fun. For those of you who don't know a little bit of the background, Toy Addict 26 was my original YouTube channel. That's no more. Google deleted my channel. And, at one point I was discouraged. I just felt like getting rid of the whole thing and just doing the IG and socials. But Carlos was one of the people that was instrumental in telling me, hey, let's just start from scratch and just kind of reinvent the channel. I used to do a lot of more of a toy review type of channel versus this kind of stream. And I decided, it's even better in the sense of time because I can, sit down with you guys and chat it up for an hour or two once a week. And, I'm still involved in the community, involved in the hobby, but I'm just not putting so much time because let me tell you, toy reviews, that stuff takes a lot of time. I don't know if you guys ever had a chance to see my reviews, and I still have some here of the Thundercat stuff. That was stuff that I had backed up. But it takes time because, doing the intro, the outro, the editing, the photography at the end, all that stuff, people think you just hit record and stand in front of a camera. It's very, very time consuming. So I'm kind of glad that I kind of, moved on from that and have evolved into this kind of more of a live streaming. And it's really fun because I get to, join in with you guys and get different perspectives and get into different conversations about the hobby with other people, other toy tubers, people in the industry. So it's really fun, Jay, like, I know you've been around for a while, how did you get this whole thing started? As far as, being a toy tuber and stuff.
Sorry, guys. I'm also actually. I just want to apologize because I'm also actually recovering from. So I think it might be the same thing that Carlos has. So I lost my voice earlier this week. So if it starts cutting in and out, that's just because I'm dying. So anyway, you know what, that the toy tuber thing is just a mistake. Honestly, it's a happy mistake. My toy channel was a retro channel dedicated. My original channel was a retro channel originally dedicated to cartoons of the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and anime. That was the original intent of my channel. But as with anything that happens on YouTube, it wasn't clicking. It wasn't connecting with people. But when we got the whole epidemic started happening across the world, I found myself, and as with many of us here, trapped in our own homes, and I felt a sense of isolation. I felt a sense of being trapped. And I remember at one point I was telling my audience, that if I ever get a chance to get out of my house, or actually more specifically, the moment they let me out of my house, I'm going to go toy hunting, because I'd watched an episode of Pixel Dan where he said, you know what, Ghostbusters is reissuing the real Ghostbusters figures from 1985, and I was like, pardon me, which was based off the cartoon.
Oh, man.
Sorry about that,
Damn.
guys.
Yeah.
Um,
No.
so I was like, you know what? I love those things as a kid, and I want to grab the whole set. So immediately, as soon as I was able to, they started letting us out to go get groceries and stuff like that, whatever. I said, you know what? I'm heading to Toys R Us and I'm gonna go find these toys. I had no idea they were a Walmart exclusive because I'm an idiot. I didn't know that. So I went to Toys R Us, right? The first thing I did, and I went to Toys R Us. I found nothing, right? But then I said I hadn't been into Toys R Us in 20 years. I hadn't been to Toys R Us in 20 years. My eyes just went like, what the hell? Where? Like, I totally forgot. I totally forgot what it was to have wall to wall to wall to wall toys. And
Yeah.
I found Power Rangers. I found Transformers. I found G.I. Joe Classified. I found Marvel Legends. And I was like, where's this stuff been all my life? I don't understand. Like this was happening while I was working my ass off. You know what I mean? I was missing a part of my life. And then I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to go keep hunting and I'm going to start visiting these places. And then shortly thereafter, about a month later, Mattel drops a bomb on us and says, Masters of the Universe is coming back. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
I lost my mind.
Yeah.
And then I spent the next couple of months just hunting Masters of the Universe, which is hard up here in Canada. In Canada, we didn't like, if you thought distribution was hard in the US, Canada is non-existent.
Mhm.
Like I was literally hunting every single day and it just became an obsession. And as I was hunting, people were like, this guy's crazy. I want to watch this guy. I want to find out if he finds anything. And then I started gathering, a lot of followers and people were just, encouraging me saying, I'm in the same position. How come we can't find any of these things? And we started sharing information.
Mhm.
One thing led to another. And I am so grateful at the number of people who have decided to join me on this journey because, much like yourself, Jorge, I was discouraged. I was very discouraged. I was at one point I stopped making videos. I was making a video once every 3 months. And you know what? That's not good for your channel. If you don't produce okay, I'm not going to say it depends. It's on everybody else's individual, success story. But I found that consistency was the key for me. Once I started doing something very, very consistent, all of a sudden more people started joining and more people started following. But if it wasn't for this, journey that I took, I don't think I'd be where I am today. And I want to congratulate you and Carlos on 20 episodes. That's huge. That's absolutely huge. Congratulations and congratulations on not giving up, because that's the thing about YouTube. YouTube can be frustrating. YouTube can be very discouraging, but it's amazing that through your own channel, the Thunder, sorry, the channel, your Thundercats Instagram,
Mhm.
you have a great following there, and you can bring those people back here and enjoy and share with them, right?
Yeah.
So it's again, it's cyclical. Everything is full circle. So congratulations again on 20 episodes.
Thanks, man. No, and what you're saying is true, but at the end of the day, for me at least, everybody has different goals. I know at one point, maybe 10 years ago, me, right, was like, oh, I want to be the next big YouTuber and this and that. But the grounded, more realistic, adult, mature me is like, I just love being able to hang with people like you, across the globe, talking toys, man, making new friends, making connections. One of the things that Carlos and I talked about at length is how awesome PowerCon meeting up with you, Jay, for as limited time as it was, unfortunately, but meeting people like Nolan at
Mhm.
Legends Con, just standing in line and having people be like, hey, wait a minute, I've seen your reviews, and have people like kind of recognize you. Um, that's what it's all about for me. I don't really care about a paycheck. Uh, I feel like it's just sitting here and just partaking and just having a good time with people, like-minded people, and just geeking out, man, geeking out. Like my buddy Attack Peter tells me, bro, what you want to do is just a hang. It's just a thing where people want to come and partake and be
Mhm.
part of the party and just discuss and you learn about other people and their backgrounds. Originally, the thought process behind Toy Addicts Anonymous was treating it more not like a therapy thing, but like, you know, how we have alcoholics and you know, different types of programs. It was kind of about addressing the toy hobby and the pros and cons. So, you know, some people, I could say myself, I'm guilty for it. I've made bad financial decisions in the past just for the hobby, and they've affected things. You know, of course, I was a lot younger. I had less um, responsibilities. I just had one child, you know, so it was just like, oh, I got to get this shit, and I don't care. I'll pay lightly. You know what I mean? But now, you know, being 47, almost 50, it's just like, no, bills got to get paid. Toys
Mm.
can wait. You know, one thing that I do now a lot, especially with the U.S. distributors like Hasbro, I don't pre-order shit anymore unless it's like a very limited exclusive or like a crowd fund that I want to have. I put stuff in my cart on Amazon and I just let it sit there, man. And whenever stuff goes on sale, click. You know what I mean? Because it's inevitable. Like right now
Yeah.
today, do you guys know about bullseye deals? Have you
Mm.
heard of bullseye deals? So check this out. Target has their own clearance eBay page, eBay store. It's called Bullseye Deals. So I go to Bullseye Deal, and I found out through this guy that I follow, Pre-Turnia, on
Mhm.
TikTok, not on TikTok, on Twitter, and on Bullseye Deals they had like the Hulk, the new Avengers Hulk 2-pack with Banner for like
Mhm.
$37. They had the Hawkeye with the Speed Cycle for like 30 something dollars, like significantly well discounted items that I don't have to deal with the Target BS on their website. Like I could just order it on eBay and it's free shipping. So it's like everybody, if you're patient enough, you can score things. Not that I'm saying that we should just kind of get used to this. We want to make sure that we get the stuff we want, because not everything's going to hit the clearance boxes, right? But that's kind of the game I'm playing now. Like I used to be that FOMO guy that had to have everything when it came out, and I just can't do that anymore. I just wait. You know, I let other people that are impatient grab shit. I live vicariously through them, and then eventually I pull that trigger. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
Brick, talk to us about how you started everything, man. How first of all, let's say hi to everybody here. I know we got
Yeah.
quite a few people. So we have Nolan, Desref fan, we've got Labrat, and there's a couple other people, but I guess they're just participating in spirit. So thank you for participating, guys. Thank you for being here and joining us. But yeah, Brick, talk to me about your voyage. How did you start doing this? What encouraged you to take that step?
Yeah, for sure. But first, when you started the stream and you had that cool illustration, that's a dope illustration. But since Carlos is, I'm kind of bummed. Carlos can't
I know,
celebrate.
dude.
So
I
I was
know.
like, oh, maybe if I like throw these on, I got my yellow shirt on, I'll get like, my figure here and just kind of do the. So you're here in spirit, Carlos. You're here.
Yeah.
Nah, as far as my journey, like it's been about a year, a little over a year now. August, it's my birthday, August 14th of last year is when I started it. So I'm super it's kind of neat. I'm like in this sort of reflective mode and appreciative mode because hit the 500 and now recently hit 600
Awesome.
and subs, which is like not something I totally was aware of. And still, in many ways, I'm not the best at being sort of aware of looking at the metrics and the numbers and stuff. But it is kind of significant to think like, oh, wow, those are big numbers and it's moving. So it started just like Jay. Like really, I wasn't collecting action figures. I collected action figures as a kid, and I went pretty much through high school. So when I say as a kid, because people sometimes wonder, I was born in 76. So I was born into like a Kenner collection because my brother's 5 years older than me.
Oh, same
And,
here.
after 77, he saw Star Wars and was like, Mom, Dad, I need these. Lola, Grandma, Grandpa, like, I need these. So I grew up, was like, oh, there's Star Wars toys around me. And then in the early 80s, it was like, hey, there's this thing called G.I. Joe. It's coming. And so as a kid, we got these things, and, kids of immigrant parents who I think, work really hard and want to provide in a different way, maybe like, you know, switching things up from the way that they were, you know, raised in the Philippines. So I think they're just like, yeah, we want to try and make this work for them. Let me get you those toys. Is that what you want? So we had a sizable G.I. Joe collection, sizable Star Wars collection, and a couple of odds and ends like some Motu and Sectars or whatever. And so, but then that all stopped right around high school. And then I went to college, and then that was right around the time of Toy Biz and Marvel figures.
Mhm.
And I was like, wait, what? They're doing like these characters that I grew up with that I love. So started picking up odds and ends, but really wasn't a deep collection. It was this stuff where the name comes from, Brick Something, because I got really deep into Lego. Had stuff as a kid, and then like my cousins started, like, they're getting too old. They're like, here, have my stuff. And I started accumulating that stuff. So then finally, when I got like, you know, an actual job and could afford it, that's when like the Lego thing got really big. And actually didn't start heavily till like 2007 maybe or so, or 2008. And I went deep. And then, you know, that was kind of the main thing, not an action figure in sight. And then the pandemic. And then you're sitting around and you're paying attention online, and you're like, oh man, I remember hearing about these lines. Like, I remember seeing people, like, I'm not too far from the Super 7 store. So I'd go in there and see like, oh, what they're doing. They picked up the Masters of the Universe thing. Like, oh yeah, I remember seeing that first He-Man sort of being brought to San Diego Comic-Con, like way back in the day. And then I remember going to a Comic-Con, I think that was like 2008, where they had this nice display and the Mattel booth of all the Motu classics. Wasn't collecting them, but just was like, wow, I didn't realize like Masters of the Universe is back. But again, wasn't touching the stuff. Then pandemic hits. I'm just watching videos, learning about toys, going back. I'd been watching like Toy Galaxy when it was still Toy Galaxy for like years. And just because he was doing what I loved, he was like going back and talking about lines that I loved and the history. And I was like fascinated by that. And then he'd go character by character with some of these things. And so I was just watching collectors from afar. I couldn't buy. I just wasn't in a position to, and I was stuck on this stuff. So again, fast forward, pandemic, started watching all sorts of people, including Mega J, Geek Dad Life, Spectre Creative, even like going through the Motu Classics thing. And it was just like digesting this stuff. And at some point I catch wind like everybody else, like, oh wait, there's this thing that's coming called Masters of the Universe Origins. Like, wait, what? We're going back to that? And then what excited me, that even then I wasn't like, I'm going to buy it. It wasn't until they announced Revelation. And so I'd been watching things like Four Horsemen, Mythic Legions, hadn't been buying Masters of the Universe Classics. And I was like, oh man, I'm not going to miss out on Classics again. Maybe I'm going to check out this Revelation thing. And then from there, it just kind of like mushroomed. I was like, oh, you know what? I do. Yeah, I think I actually want to try those Mythic Legions figures I've been admiring from afar. What are those about? Right. And then, you know, it's just kind of gone on from there. So I started the channel last year just because I was watching all this stuff and, you know, engaging in the community. And I just like, I love this. This is fun. I grew up as like a punk rock kid who did his own zines or magazines back in the day. So the idea of like creating a thing, like I love that. I've always loved that. Like creating a website, creating a magazine back in the day, doing bands. So I was like, oh, cool. Let me try this thing. Like, how does it work? Oh, you shoot video and you put it up. Oh, this is cool. This is like, I'm running a channel, you know, like a TV channel for us back in the day. It's like, this is like TV. We're doing talk shows. We're doing whatever it is. And so, and I've just been doing it for about a year now. And just, you know, you mentioned regularity, Jay, like it took me a while to figure that out. Like, and I'm a high school teacher. So like I'm pretty busy. I've got 2 kids. And so I had to figure out what doing ToyTube with the rest of my life, like how does it actually fit? What can I actually do? So for me, it means like shooting shorts of my figures, doing these rotations and really trying to kind of create like a standard presentation. So I've been doing those more regularly and I've seen that help a lot. And for me, it's just like, I get to document these toys that I'm now doing. Like, I guess it's kind of like my action figure 2.0 collection. Cause I I know these figures aren't going to be here forever, and it's like, it's a way for me to document them. So when I pull that up on my feed, I love it, man. It's like looking at some of those old 80s card backs where you saw the cross sells and you see all the figures. That's what it feels like to me. It's like, oh, look, I have those figures. So a lot of it is about documenting my stuff. I have been doing reviews and unboxings. I'm trying to do them, but you said it, man. It's a lot of work. And so I've established a regular stream on Sundays where I kind of do the quote unquote news thing, but it's not really. It's me inviting a co-host like this because I want to meet people like you and like, hey, what are you interested in looking at? Jay's been on there, which was super fun. And we kind of try to like, I try to like tailor it a little bit to like what that person wants to look at, what I'm interested in. And we just talk and geek out and like, maybe get a little too serious about the ramifications of this new scale or whatever it is, right? And just really just be nerdy and just like, oh my gosh, look at the deco. But at the end of the day, it's like, man, this is like the grown-up version of, hey, let's just hang out and talk about the stuff we love and just be appreciative about the fact that like Masters of the Universe is back, or like Marvel Legends is a thing, that giant 2-foot giant men are a thing. Like, to me, that's all amazing. And because if I told kid me that like someday you're going to be like blown away at the kinds of toys they're able to make. So anyways, that's kind of the story. I'm still figuring it out, tweaks all the time, like what will actually work, what won't. But at the end of it, kind of the advice that you got, it is about a hang for me, because it like, if I weren't doing the channel, I'd probably be talking to other people about toys, or like, hey, where'd you get this? And what do you think of this toy line? And, hey, have you seen this? I'm just doing it on Sundays at 4:30, or, you know what I mean? Like, so that's kind of where I'm at. I'm having fun. But when you all were talking about, when you in particular were talking about like the 12-step program for toys, and the more like serious, like, ooh, the financial end, that's real, and so I'm having fun, trying my best to be responsible, but then, yeah, just that's all very real. And like, I think that's interesting. I am curious, when did you swerve maybe from that more like, hey, let's talk about the habits associated with collecting, to like, how did that evolve since we're doing the 20th episode?
It's really funny that you mentioned that, because listening to you guys' origin story as far as like, your voyage and what got you into this, during the pandemic, I was very much absent from this world, being that I had a COVID baby. So my daughter was born May 27th, 2020. So I was deep in the neck of it, man, supporting my wife, carrying the baby, just taking care of her, and completely absent from social. Yeah, I would update my feed and stuff like that, but as far as doing videos and things like that, I wasn't there. So it's interesting because a lot of people saw growth. A lot of people started during the pandemic. And I was just being a dad all over again. I'm 47 now. My daughter's 3, but I have 2 grown-ass boys. I got a 24-year-old and a 21-year-old. So nice. It was kind of like starting from scratch. And I got to tell you, it's a very different experience. Because I guess when I had Chris, my 21-year-old, he, I was, not that I was an absent father, but it was more about just making the dough. I was a manager at Foot Locker. You know how retail is. It consumes you. Like, I would open and close. I would come home, have a meal, take a shower, put him to bed. And, it was mostly grandma and mom at the front lines. And going through it again now, I was in the front lines with, the birthing and the whole raising of my daughter now. And it's just, I see everything through a different set of lenses, totally. Because there's a lot of concerns, especially things that kids are exposed to. Also working in school, I did a whole, flip of career. I've always worked in customer service. So I worked at AT&T for about 15 years, uh, made my way up through the ranks, and I was going to be in the manager program. And
Mhm.
then they canceled. They did like a hiring freeze at the time, right before the management program was supposed to start. That left a little bit of a bitter taste in my mouth, and I was looking for growth. So another opportunity came up. Long story short, fast forward, I started working quality, which was something that always, when you work customer service, the next step is to be behind the scenes,
Mhm.
grading people, making sure they're doing the quality, giving the quality that the company needs to project for customers. And I did quality with a company called Assurant for about 2.5 years. But then my daughter was born, and I was just thinking about the future. And I was like, you know what? Let me try IT. So I reached out to a friend of mine, and I was like, hey man, I know that you studied IT and this and that. He's like, no man, I'm in finance at NASA. Hit up this guy. And it was another guy that literally, him and I grew up in elementary school. We've known each other since we were small kids.
Mhm.
And long story short, he's the director at a school. And he's like, yeah, man, I need a second guy in arms, that can help me out to run IT for these schools. And the rest is history. I'm working in IT, completely something that I would never have pictured myself doing years ago, but I've learned through the years. And at the same time, I've been exposing myself to the education system
Mhm.
and the ups and downs and what the true school goals are and things like that. And it concerns you when you're raising a child, what they're exposed to, the education system, how you're going to have, you know, make sure they're successful or they have some sort of career that they can rely on to live off of. So just a lot of things in perspective have been placed in front of me um, through my voyage in my career. So I've always never let go of the hobby,
Mhm.
but I wanted to get back somehow, and I figured, what better way to approach it than to do more of like a stream, and you know, I don't know if you shared this with you guys before, but back in the day, oh, we got finally.
I'm so sorry. My
It's
apologies.
magic. Steve, what's going on, Steve? Hey, better late than
Man,
never. Thank you so much for not giving up, buddy.
yeah, man, I am so very sorry for the delay. Apparently,
No
I'm
worries.
not that great with technology.
No
So,
worries, brother. It's awesome to have you. Unfortunately, Carlos can't join us tonight. I was just sharing, my story with the whole YouTube and everything, but yeah. So I think I just wanted to still be involved, and
Mhm.
before I started the whole YouTube thing, my original YouTube channel, I was a writer and reviewer for figures.com. Website's still around.
Oh.
Um,
Mhm.
it's a very household name. So like for you not to come across that website is like
Mhm.
it's hard. But I worked with them for a good like 10 plus years. So essentially I was a writer and reviewer, made my way through the ranks, and they would fly me out to Comic-Con every year. They fly me out to Toy Fair. So what was awesome about that is I got to meet a lot of people in the industry, Randy Falk, David Bonner, Dwight Stahl, all these guys that are making magic in the toy industry nowadays. And then kind of I've connected those dots and those relationships and brought them on to this new channel, and having guests on and stuff. And like lately I've been lucky to have people like James Groman
Mhm.
on, which
Mhm.
is an
Mhm.
amazing three-dimensional artist. And
Yeah.
my buddy Attack Peter, which is actually a local artist. I live here in South Florida. He's in Miami. I've known him for about 12 years, so it's just awesome to bring it all full circle. Steve here is one of these awesome dudes that, like I mentioned, when I went to Legion's Con with Carlos, I met Steve for the first time. I remember it was crack of dawn. Carlos and I walking from the hotel to Legion's Con, and we ran into Steve with his wagon and his wife. This man had a wagon. He was ready to buy shit, dude. So we were just walking, make conversation, and it's like instant friendship, dude. It's like you don't it's kind of like almost like Cheers, but for toys. You know what I'm saying? And it's not one specific spot. It's like no matter where you are, it's that universal language, which is the hobby. And I think it's something beautiful about it, dude. Like, it's funny. My wife tells me, "Oh, you're always so tired, but when you have to stream on Thursdays, you have this second wind."
Guilty.
I'm like, dude, of course I have a second wind. This is like my happy time, man. Like, if I'm not trying to pull the two sisters apart, because my little one is rough. She's a little kid at her 10-year-old sister, and she throws tantrums. So it's like, if I'm not dealing with that, or just parenting general crap, adulting, it's like, when I come in here, I lock myself in this room and I talk to you guys. It's like I'm in another planet, dude. So of course I'm gonna have a second wind and be, energetic and all sorts of shit. So yeah, long story short, full circle, here we are. Surprisingly, my Toy Addict 26 Instagram page is just kind of like, it's just floating. Like, it's just sitting there. My numbers don't go up or down. Like, I'll gain 10 people and I'll lose 8. So I'll see like a gain of 2 people. But my Thundercats page, I guess because there's not a lot of Thundercats accounts, or I don't know what it is, but my Thundercats page is just blown up. So what I've done is I've taken that, blessing and try to translate it into a universal toy language, and have people come and join us here, and go to my other page and all that stuff. But yeah, at the end of the day, Thundercats has always been my ultimate fandom IP. The reason why it hasn't been given so much love, that's a conversation we had to have with Warner Brothers execs and powers that be, because it baffles the mind that we don't have a lot more Thundercats products out there. Thankfully, Super 7 is doing magic with this property. They're doing all sorts of stuff. And that brings me to one of my most recent hauls, which I'm really excited to have.
The Jaga?
The Ghost 2. What's crazy about this, and I couldn't believe it, is have you seen what this is going for in the aftermarket, dude? And I'm wondering why, though, because it's not like Brian Flynn has officially said, hey, we only produced X amount. We still don't know if Big Bad ordered a shit ton of these. It's just kind of like, I don't know what it is, but people are going ape shit for this figure, and it's really nice. But
I feel like with the castle, with the layer and everything like that, that's brought a lot more eyes onto that intellectual property with everything. And I think that might, I don't know, that's going to have that FOMO effect for a lot of people now, where they're going to see, well, man, I got the castle. That's kind of what I was wanting. And now I maybe need to go back and get some of these figures, or these might be a little bit harder to find.
Yeah. I think it's the same thing as, speaking about Brick and Mega J, like, they started their whole thing during the pandemic. And during the pandemic, there was this huge boom in toy purchasing and toy collecting. I remember one year, I think it was 2021 or 2022, that I was like, holy shit, Hasbro was just cranking out wave after wave every month or so. And I was like, why are these people making so much toys? And apparently there was that many buyers. So at that point, like Brick, like you mentioned, people caught wind of Motu Classics.
Oh yeah,
It was no longer like a running thing. People just went crazy, and those prices for Motu Classics skyrocketed, like $200+ per figure and stuff. Now it's
like
kind
of some of those are like crazy. Some of those like high-end ones, those are astronomical rates now.
Yeah, dude. And like, at that one point, I've always seen toys as a hobby, but it's also a means for, handling financial things. And I've had financial needs when I first met my wife now. We kind of started from scratch. She moved out of her mom's place. I moved out where I was living, and we just kind of started literally from scratch. And one of the things that I relied on was I got like 75% of my Hot Toys figures, sold everything.
Mhm.
I sold my Castle Grayskull, and all those things funded what is now, the family that I have and stuff. So I've never been married to a toy. There's never been anything where I'd say, absolutely never will I sell this, And I think some people have that kind of, I would say, and that's where we come into the whole kind of uh, the rehab or the acceptance of having an issue with a hobby is,
Toy addict.
yeah,
Oh,
you
yeah.
have to accept that these tangible things can be replaced. And if you sell it today, you can always buy it back someday.
Oh, it's hard though sometimes.
It's tough, dude. Like there's so many things that I used to own,
Yeah.
that I no longer own, that are worth a fortune now, and I'll probably never own them again. But
Motu classics for me, definitely. I had a whole collection of that stuff, and it's like, yeah, I'll get it back someday. And then now, like we're talking about with the aftermarket, with that, it's like, phew, maybe not.
yeah, definitely. So I just wanted to say hi to some other people that joined us. We had Allison Trey. What's going on, Allison?
Troy, yeah.
And just pretty much, like I think overall, like I said, it's just an awesome time. Just to be a collector, I think it brings a lot of joy to my life. My wife, she's in the mental health field. She's a licensed mental health counselor, so she's always kind of trying to deconstruct where the hobby came from, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
was it past trauma when you were a child and stuff like that. And it's funny because if you go back to my episodes,
That's starting from a deficit, man. But yeah, I get it.
there's an actual, well, and I could talk
see-
about
I
that a
can-
little bit.
yeah.
It's funny because when I want to say I was maybe like 10 or 11, I came home from school one day and all my toys were gone. And back then I lived with my grandparents and my dad. And I come to find out that my dad just decided that, the voyage of manhood has started and that I was too old to play with toys. So he was like, I gave all your stuff to a needy family and you need to start playing with being more of a masculine male boy and having a girlfriend and this. So I guess that may be attributed to where I'm at today, in the sense that I guess my childhood was cut short
Mhm.
in terms of toys and stuff like that. And I'm like, you know what? Now I can buy all the shit I want and nobody can tell me anything. So
And I think that's a big portion of it too. Like, you got to think you had that loss that taken away from it and everything like that. And so, yeah, I could definitely see that. Where it's like now it's like you got adult money, let it rip,
yeah, but it's funny because just like Brick mentioned, he didn't go to a Toys R Us for a minute.
No, that's Jay.
I was embarrassed to walk into a Toys R Us. I was like, I would think about going to Toys R Us, and I was like, oh, somebody sees me hanging out at Toys R Us, I'm gonna be a laughing stock, at school and stuff. And lo and behold, one day I went to Toys R Us and I see this older gentleman, must have been like in his late 50s, and he had a shopping cart full of toys, man. And
Scalper.
I walk up to the guy and I'm like, hey, damn, your kids are super lucky. You're buying. And he's like, look, I don't have kids. This is for me. And then from that minute, I was like, what? And then back then, I remember I used to hang at the local bookstore. So for me, it was Borders. And I would hang at Borders with my buddy, and we would go through, I picked up an issue of Action Figure Digest. And that's when I found out, holy shit, Kenner is bringing back Star Wars. And it's all history from there, man. Like, I literally, to tell you that I made it like a goal and I achieved it, I went to New York Toy Fair that year. I had a business card that I made up. I called up. It was so easy back then to get in. And I flew to New York. I literally flew back the same day. I didn't stay in New York. but I was actually at Toy Fair at Hasbro headquarters, and I was there for the unveiling of the Star Wars Power of the Force line. And then
Mm,
there, dude, it was just the rest is history. So a
nice.
big piece of my collecting life was really all Star Wars,
Mhm.
Star Wars and Spawn.
Oh,
And
man.
ironically, nowadays, I barely collect Star Wars because I just don't like what's coming out from the Star Wars camp, from the Disney camp. It just, I don't know. I'm the old guy that wants the classic stuff, and they just keep stuffing all this Disney Plus shit down my throat, and it's just not me. So, I mean, thank them because I would be so much more broke, right? If they were just giving me all the shit I want. But yeah, I can go on and on, but like it's just the voyage of how we are here, how we got here. It's so interesting, you know what I mean? And with you, Steve, you do toy photography, and you do some amazing stuff behind the camera lens.
Thank
Uh,
you, man.
and I could tell you at one point, I used to do a lot of toy photography. I still have my DSLR camera. That thing's collecting dust nowadays because I just don't have the time. But
Yeah.
I used to love getting dirty, grabbing my backpack, putting action figures, heading out somewhere, you know, putting up my tripod and going to town, man. But it,
Yeah.
it's a labor of love,
Definitely.
which I've transitioned to doing more of like the 2D art and then, doing this kind of hang weekly with you folks. But how did you get into the whole toy photography thing? Like when did you start? What got you into it? Have you always done it? You know, talk to us about it.
Yeah. So initially, man, I growing up, it was GI Joe, it was Masters of the Universe, it was Power Rangers, all those properties and everything like that. I collected pretty much a little bit of everything. I was very fortunate. I was the only child, so I was spoiled. You know. Um, well, anyway, fast forward a number of years later, me and my wife, we bought a house together. We were actually, this is in the process of like getting ready to get married. So I was cleaning out some stuff. Well, anyway, my mom and my grandmother saved all my old toys from way back in the day, like had them in the plastic containers, all the pieces, all that stuff.
That's a treasure.
And yeah, I opened that stuff up, and the rush of nostalgia that overtook me, like I felt like I was 5 all over again. Just seeing some of these figures, and what's so crazy, it had been probably 20, maybe 30 years. No, probably about 20, 25 years. And I could still remember all the parts that went with each one, all that stuff, the factions, everything like that. And a lot of that was like, man, this is really cool. And then it's like, well, okay, well, let me see, what's out there. And then apparently, like in St. Louis, which I'm not too far from, there's a big toy show that goes on there. And I'm thinking, well, okay, maybe there'll just be like a few vendors, because I used to sell comics and stuff like that. Anyway, I go to this toy show, and again, more of just booth after booth after booth of nostalgia, just tons and tons of stuff. And well, anyway, I ended up collecting, a few action figures and stuff like this. This is towards I guess when Hasbro just took over Marvel Legends, I guess.
Mhm.
So again, some of those first ones weren't the greatest.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so that was right, I think it was 2012 or so.
Yeah.
That's when they started doing the return of Marvel Legends and everything like that, with newer sculpts and everything. I'm like, man, this stuff looks really cool, and it's really well articulated. So I'm like, okay, well, let me kind of dabble with that. So I was looking at that point where online there was custom action figures where they were making Marvel Legends customs and everything, and got onto YouTube, seeing a few people on there, and then I bumped into D Amazing page. And with that, because I was for a long while a mentor on collecting, I'm an adult, I can't be playing with toys, and then I'm looking at this stuff. He's doing all these crazy action poses. I'm like, man, that looks so badass. That looks so cool. And I kind of, heard about the ACBA, articulated comic book art.
Yeah.
And I was kind of seeing what they were doing as well too. I'm like, man, these guys make it look fantastic, right off the page. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, maybe I dabble in that a little bit. And, so I kind of did, some hand photography, whatever, with my phone is what I could. The lighting was terrible. The background was cardboard or whatever. And then I kind of just kept getting after it. I'm like trying to make it as realistic as I can. And I kind of bounced around from like superheroes to, anything that Mezco was coming out with. And then I've within probably the past year and a half, it's been primarily Mythic Legions where I've been at. So it's been awesome. It's been awesome.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, it's funny, it's just interesting, everybody's story. For example, John Emerald Knight, he was sharing that he went through a similar thing as me, but it was his older cousins who forced him to grow up and stop playing with toys. I would just, give the finger to my cousin. If a parental unit has more say, but a cousin, dude, I'll be like, I'm gonna keep playing with toys. You know what I mean? But I think there's always an evolution, right? Because, for example, I started with comics as well, and that's where the whole art thing comes from. I remember, I want to say the first comic book that I picked up, and that's kind of like where it just started, was it was that Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man issue, the one where he's punching Great Hulk through
the McFarlane one.
Yeah. And dude, I was obsessed with McFarlane, and I was just like, my whole thing was like redoing the covers and drawing them and learning his style, and I mastered how to do the webbing, that McFarlane style webbing. And
with the little. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then I remember my uncle, God rest his soul, he was like my father. I lost him at a very young age due to AIDS. And one of the things that he gave me, which I'll never forget, is he took me to New York. My first trip to New York was my uncle. He exposed me to the whole Broadway scene, and he bought me a shit ton of comics, a bunch of McFarlane stuff that back then were like $15, $20 an issue, Yeah. So that was amazing, and I was just obsessed with McFarlane. So when he announced the toy line, it was like, whoa, hold on. And, it just kind of spiraled from comics to tangible action figures, to transitioning to now, like, I remember I used to go crazy with Power of the Force and 5-point of articulation, and then transition to the vintage collection. And now I don't even care about vintage collection. Now I'm all about 1/12 scale and high end, and the more articulation, the better, and some 1/6 scale stuff for good measure. So it's like we progress and we evolve as collectors as well, where we just kind of like shove things to the side and find more joy in other things than other lines. There's so much amazing plastic crack, is what I call it, out today, that it's such a struggle to sift through these things and say, okay, I can do without this, or I need this, or I can do without this, and it's a struggle, as a collector, to find that balance. So my buddy Peter, what he told me, he's like, dude, what I do is I curate my collection. So he has like the best version of Skeletor. Boom. He's got like a Mondo figure, the best Spider-Man. He's got like a quarter scale Hot Toys Spider-Man from Far From Home with like this beautiful elaborate base, and that's his Spider-Man, whereas with me, it's like, I don't know, I think I have like 10 plus Spider-Man figures and like 2 Hot Toy Spider-Man figures, and so
they make a few of them, I think, but
yeah, so it's a struggle. And then like one of the things, for example, Thundercats, which is I absolutely love, and I wish there was more of it. I have some of the Iron Studios statues. I got all the Super 7 stuff, and then I have the Mezco, the bigger boys that are like 14, 15-inch. And I try to look for other things. I have the Mini-Mates, Thundercats Mini-Mates. And I would love for a overseas company to take over the IP. I'd love to see like Mayfex or SH Figure Arts Thundercats. That would be incredible.
I would hope I like the idea of the Mafex, but I would hope they would do like the big, like for like Lion-O or something like that. You want that bigger, beefier buck, you know. So sometimes with Mafex, I feel like some of those characters are a little bit on the smaller side. I mean,
Yeah, dude. No, you're right. Like I had the whole back and forth with Carlos because he got the Mafex Classic Thor, right?
he got that from me actually.
Really? And I'm
yeah,
like,
I traded him Mezco Destro, and he got the Mafex Thor. Yeah.
oh, dude, and I'm like, you know what? I love how he looks, but when you place him next to another figure, he's just too tiny, man. Like, the Mafex proportions are really off. Like that Bane that's coming out next year, it looks amazing, but I bet you that shit's gonna be as tall as Batman. I bet you.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Like I love the articulation on Mafex. I love the articulation on SH Figure Arts, but they just run just a hair smaller than everything else.
Perfect example, Vader. SH Figure Arts Vader, he's tiny. He's supposed to tower above everybody else, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know why, because they're already so expensive to begin with. So I don't know why they limit the scale. I don't know if it's a production thing, a cost thing, but that's one of the reasons why I don't collect those that much, because the proportions are just not there. You know what I mean?
I feel like it's almost a royalty thing where, I think more domestic lines, they're a little bit taller. So it's essentially not conflicting with.
So maybe they have like a cap, right? Like a scale cap. So it's like you can do all this Marvel catalog, but you can't surpass X amount of inches in height. That's a good analogy, because I think, like, I don't know, it's just I've always wondered that, because they're such great figures. They move so well. The sculpt, the paint, they're so clean. Like to this day, brown and tan Wolverine from Mafex, that's the ultimate Wolverine for me.
That's like a $200, maybe $300 figure right now. That thing is scarce.
I got that shit from HLJ for like $6,500 US, dude, and it's never gonna be sold, because it's just such a beautiful piece. But yeah, it's interesting how things have evolved in the collecting community. It's people that never messed with 1/6. They've been exposed to what Mondo's doing right now, and they're like, holy shit, I gotta pick up some of those.
Yeah, those have definitely caught my attention lately. I dabbled in a few 1/6 here and there, but the Deluxe Skeletor, the Beastman, the
those are gorgeous.
Yeah, I mean, amazing looking.
Wait till you see what's coming. I know about some stuff that I can't. I basically signed an NRD for this kind of stuff. Yeah, because it's like an NDA. Sorry, NDA. Things that I've been privy to that are coming that you would just. The Mondo camp is going to take your wallets if you're not careful.
That's the scary part, I tell myself I try to stay in one lane as best I can. At first, I used to get a little bit of everything, and then it's like, man, the wallet's a lot lighter, a lot faster. But then I figure if I stay in kind of one lane, it's not as bad. But yeah, like you got other things like, man, that looks pretty good.
Dude, one lane. I'm like the Jetsons right now. Like, there's lanes everywhere. It's just like,
I tell myself I'm in one lane, but I'm kind of still, third party Mythic Legions, 1/6. It's a dabble of everything. At one point over the summer, I was all into Lego. Like I was just loading up on Lego like crazy. So
here's the thing with Lego though, because I was talking about how I kind of came from that. So because sometimes people are like, wait, dude, you're buying Legions, you're buying these weird third party things like $80 a pop. Yes, of course, at the end of the day, it's like it is a lot of money. But coming from Lego, I actually had reverse sticker shock where it's like, oh, that's how much figure? Yeah, because like these things are not cheap. When you're buying a set, you're just like, oh, I guess this is what I'm spending. And you don't really think about it. And then if you get into like custom minifigs, which can be up there for like a tiny piece of plastic like that, and for some reason, it's collector brain. You're like, no, I can do that. No, I can spare that. And you get used to that. So then when I got to like Mythic Legions? Oh yeah, no, I think I can do that. And it's just really odd. It's really odd, and it's not a good thing, and it's probably not the best thing I need to be spending money on. But at the end of the day, we all got to be responsible. But like,
100%.
there's joy. There truly is some joy that I derive from these. And at the end of the day, you kind of said I got to be comfortable with the idea that they may all disappear. Someone may come in someday and just break in and take some stuff or whatever, fire. I'm okay with that. Like, I think I'm old enough and lived life long enough that I can do that. And I've been documenting stuff here, so I can go back and remember. But, while they're here, like, I'm legitimately blown away every single day by the amount of things that people are sort of announcing. And it's not just like, like, again, I wouldn't be able to do that weekly stream if there wasn't just a sheer amount of things coming. You mentioned like, oh yeah, I remember during the pandemic, like G.I. Joe Classified was coming out with this, right? 100%. So you talk about the big players, right? Hasbro, Mattel, they've got all their lines. But now we're getting things like you mentioned, Four Horsemen. Four Horsemen is now officially doing 3 lines from when they had the one. And the amount of sort of pre-orders, like in a couple of weeks, we're going to get G-Con, and they're going to announce the next thing that's going to come that I'll be able to pre-order a year plus out while I'm waiting for the thing that I ordered a year back. And it's just like a sheer amount of things, right? And then there's like stuff coming out like from overseas that are like out of nowhere. Hey, you want like a giant werewolf? Sure. You want like multiple companies doing Journey to the West? Sure. Azure Lion this, Lens Tyson, like it's everything. And they're all, it would be one thing if it's like there's a bunch of toys, but you look at these things like, wow, these are all amazing works of art. And they're like innovating. So not just the deco and the paint and everything and the sculpts, but like I buy toys from like some random company. I was like, wow, the way this moves, the way they did that, the way they did the knee, like, oh, the way they figured out how to do the softer plastics, like all of that right now, I'm just like, whoa, this is such a wild time. So you do got to be careful. But I think like you, man, I am also right now, I'm not complete on anything. And I like to check things out to kind of see what's going on. So like, what's the state of the art, if you will? So right now I had to kind of talk myself off the ledge of how much Cyberzoic, for example, I'm going to be getting from the current Kickstarter. I love what Creative Beast Studio does. Like just the level of art of these things, the paint, the deco, the sculpts, the way they move. And to think that they're going to mix this with like mechs and technology, and they're giving me a giant dragon. My backing of the campaign started this, and then I started had to trim back. But so that's the game I got to be real careful about, because if you miss the beginning, I do have 2 kids. But I will say, now that we have like the internet, like, okay, you mentioned it earlier, living through people, like, because you mentioned you're waiting for the deals, right, Jorge? In the meantime, while I can't get it at an affordable price, I can sit on a Friday and late at night and turn on Jay and like hear about all these cool things that people are getting, right? Or I'll just watch and I can do that at this age. As much as I want to be able to hold it and pose it and take my own pictures and stuff, I can just sort of watch. I can see D-Amazing's like cool video review, see him take cool shots. And sometimes I just don't have a choice. I won't ever get that figure, but man, there's this cool thing where I can sit and watch it. So, and that's kind of how I try to manage it as much as I can. So,
yeah, for me, I think one of the biggest struggles right now is time, just balancing time. Trying to keep building that awareness and, working on my portfolio and creating this piece and creating this concept art and just knocking on doors and just hoping for that opportunity. But then as well as I'm looking here and I have a table full of customs that I plan to do back when I came back from Legions Con. I had this fervor to make all these customs, and I did some. I finished some. I did a pan throw. I've done some custom skeletons and legions and stuff, but I have a Lion-O custom that is just missing some essential things, and I just haven't had the time. And I have things like projects in my head that I want to do, like three-dimensional projects, dioramas, but it's just there's not enough time on the clock to do everything you want to do. Like my wife tells me, "Oh, just stay up at night." I'm like, "Yeah, I can do that. I can do that, but one, I'm gonna be dead in the morning because sometimes I gotta wake up at 5:30, and two, like my daughter seeks me out. You guys have seen it. She comes in here like she's the boss, and she's like, "What are you doing?"
Because she is the boss, Jorge. Get it? Stop fighting it. She is the boss.
She is. No, she is. So she comes and she runs into my stream, and I gotta cut it short. I've had so many streams that I'm literally, "Hey guys, have a good night. You guys can keep." And I walk away, and I'm in the living room, and I can hear Carlos and whoever else just still chatting away, and I'm gone because I just can't be present. But it's it's precious. Before I know it, she's gonna be grown, and she's gonna be wanting to be with her friends and stuff like that. So I gotta value that time now. But man, it just my head sometimes I can't sleep from all the ideas. Not only, have you seen those memes where it's like the guy is laying down and he's obviously thinking about something, and the wife or the girlfriend, they're like, what chick is he thinking about, or what's he up to? And he's just like thinking about the next HasLab or something like that. That's how my mind is. I'm just constantly thinking about drops that are coming and projects, things that I want to do. Like I literally have dreams of action figures that I want to create and stuff like that. And so it's a struggle, not only being a collector, but also being a creator. It's just brain overflow that is constantly happening. And it's just like you said, Brick, it's just dangerous times. There's so much beautiful plastic eye candy out there that
dangerous but fantastic.
Yeah,
we have
definitely a golden age.
We have amazing but dangerous partners like Affirm, Afterpay, Klarna, which allow us to continue buying these things. But it's a very slippery slope, Sometimes I look at my Affirm and I'm like, okay, I just can't. Like today I was just about to get the Master Wing on Amazon through Affirm, and I'm like, do I need it right now? I can wait a little bit longer.
You can wait, but I highly recommend it's something that you keep on the list.
But here's my thing, Brick. I don't know if I want him, the original, or if I want the albino.
The white tiger one, yeah.
Albino is sexy, and I'm not about having the same figure in different colorways. Like I want to choose one and run with that one. You know what I mean? So that's kind of my thing right now. Like I got the veteran Williams. I got the first run, but I saw that that white pale one with the different gear, and I'm like, ooh,
the veteran Williams.
Yeah,
I've got that on pre-order, so you can enjoy your brown one, and I'll have mine. And we're good. We'll save each other's wallets. We can put it up here and show each other.
We live
I'm
by
a big werewolf from Loose Collector.
Oh, dude, that's insane. That's insane.
The Great Wolves.
Yeah.
That's a werewolf on steroids. And
yeah, juiced up for sure.
I'm just wondering like how he'll look, if you could put him on all fours, like pouncing and things like that. Because I had the monster hide, and he's just an awesome figure, moves really well. You could stand him on one foot and everything, but he's just so massive. He's bigger than Hulk, bigger than Bane. I don't necessarily think that a werewolf needs to be so muscular and so huge. You know what I mean? But then again, I have this love for werewolves. One werewolf in particular that I'm still, crossing my toes and fingers is the John Taubin from Darkstalkers, because I know that Storm Toys, Storm Collectibles is doing Darkstalkers, and at one point I had lost hope. I thought they were kind of like closing shut on that because they only did Dimitri, and like a year plus had passed. They shown us, the succubus, and then now she's actually happening. So I'm just waiting, man, for that John Talbot. I'm waiting for the Grim Reaper dude. I forgot his name. Is that British skeleton Grim Reaper guy? You guys played the video game?
I haven't played Darkstalkers. I remember seeing it, just like, oh, those are cool.
It was
I know the
cool...
succubus, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to play it. I used to play it. It was a lot of fun. But again, Storm Collectibles, they're just killing it. But their skill is just so, like, you talk about big characters. I mean, like that werewolf he's going to be massive. Even John Talbot. John Talbot's going to be huge. He's going to be about the size of that werewolf that you're talking about right now.
Probably, yeah. But what I love about the John Talbot is, the colorways, that Capcom anime style, the effects.
Yes.
For me, I always saw Darkstalkers as, because one of my favorite all-time monster movies was Monster Squad, right?
Uh-huh.
So Darkstalkers, Darkstalkers was like bringing that generation, the monsters, and putting it into a video game. So, you had the representation of all Universal monsters. You had Frankenstein, you had Creature from the Black Lagoon, you had the werewolf, but in that anime style that Capcom did so well. And to actually have action figures, Toy Biz back in the day did these 2-packs, which was like, I want to say it was like Marvel versus Capcom, and they would have like a Darkstalker character and another Marvel versus Capcom.
Yeah, I remember those.
That's the only interpretations we ever got of those figures. But now to have Storm Collectibles do those, wow, But then it's going to be a while because Morrigan is not coming out till like mid 2024. So I wouldn't expect another Darkstalkers figure until maybe like fall of next year. It looks like they're like just kind of letting them out little by little, unless it starts doing well, and then they go apeshit like Street Fighter and the other stuff they do, and they just start pre-order.
That's the thing with Storm. Even if it's doing well, though, it takes a while. Like, I think, yeah, all this, like, we're talking, there's all sorts of toys happening right now. And I do wonder how much the market can sustain it. That's my only thing. Is like, I've seen many different bubbles burst in my lifetime. And so I feel like we're kind of in this interesting little moment right now where I don't know the numbers because I can only, I'm just on the outside sort of watching. So I don't actually know how much people are buying. I don't know how much people are producing even, right? So I just have this impression that there's a lot available and that things are getting sold seemingly enough for these companies to continue to sort of be around. But like I kind of mentioned, like Legions, right? They went from the 1 line to the effectively 3 lines, 2, and then Figure Obscura that is a little bit more spaced out. But effectively, if you look at the release schedule of all of them, there are figures being announced and then eventually shipping kind of like at a constant rate of a couple of months, maybe. Mm-hmm. And so that's one company, right? Yeah. And then you talk about like Loose Collector. Yes, they got this great wolf. They've already shared that they're working on a Frankenstein's monster that's sort of in the works that they just sort of revealed, I think, just today. You've got not Monster Squad. I always do that. Monster Force, right? Which is this whole other line coming out that seems really promising, and they've got several waves built out. There's just like, we could keep going on, like Voyagers by Fresh Monkey Fiction. And so at one point, like, because we've heard before, like, concerns about, when the term kidult was thrown out there on Motu in particular, and this notion that, like, and we know this, like, I know this to be truth, that as far as toys go, like toys, the big category T, not just action figures are such a tiny portion of that industry. Like we see that in New York Toy Fair. Like I hear a lot of the toy tubers who went, who come back in there. They're like, oh yeah, it's a strong reminder that the action figure section is such a tiny portion of the rest of the toy section.
Mhm.
So that's a tiny portion. And then within action figures, there's the adult collectors who buy these things for themselves. And then hopefully, maybe, because again, I don't know the numbers, maybe there's younger folks who are buying, maybe. Then within that, there's the portion that goes maybe beyond the stuff that they're seeing at mass retailers and are looking at things like Mythic Legions. And then beyond that, there's the folks that are adventurous and looking at these sort of import companies like 5K Toys or wherever else that, you know what I mean? It's like, I feel like those numbers, I assume, would get smaller. So I'm just wondering, what do you all think? Like, how is the level of toy production and availability and the number of companies, is this something that you think is sustainable for the next, even just 10 years?
Sorry.
No,
Go for it.
Hasbro is definitely, I feel like they pumped out so much to now where you're seeing stuff on clearance, you know? So it's like a lot of the waves, at least at Targets and everything, may not even sit there for that long, and they're already clearancing them out to make room for the next thing. So I'm like, how is that financially stable? You know what I mean? So it's like you're clearancing this much stuff out so fast with everything. I can't imagine it. Well, I will say this. I think Marvel Legends, I feel like, is taking kind of a backseat to G.I. Joe, you know, when we're talking about like the overall growth of what it used to be. But yeah, I feel like there's so many different companies pumping out so many different things. And I feel like each one kind of has a different price point depending on the collector. I think it was what Wall Street had an article maybe like earlier this year talking about adult collectors are like a quarter of the entire, like, you know, $1 billion population, not $1 billion population, but $1 billion franchise for toy collecting and everything like that, you know. So I definitely feel like I think almost every franchise almost has different price tiers. Like Lego, you might have your collector series, and then it might be like $100 set, and then a $50 set. So they definitely tier it out to where you're getting a little bit of everybody's price point, you know. So it's something for everybody kind of thing. But again, I feel like some of those companies where it's like it gets to the point where either they just can't keep up production wise. Like I feel like Mezco got definitely, like, they were hot and heavy for the longest time. And then I feel like a lot of people are kind of really backing away from them, you know. And like we talked about with Marvel Legends, I feel like you have that one figure you want to get, but then it's like, how many Spider-Men do you really need? You know what I mean? They kind of, they go with what works. But then it's like, man, that occasional random figure, that's going to peg warm, you know, so then they're having to mark that down. You know, I don't feel like, I don't know. I just feel like some of those bigger brands, I feel like people are kind of getting a little sick of having to buy everything to try to keep up, you know?
Yeah. No, I think, Jay, what do you think, man?
Well, you know, it's that old adage that people, you know, you're too big to fail. Everyone can fail.
Absolutely.
You're never too big to fail. As a matter of fact, the bigger you are, the harder you fall. And you got to be careful about that. I mean, Disney's taking a huge hit right now, like on all sides. You know, I remember when I first heard that Disney, Warner Brothers, and HBO, well, less so HBO, but when I heard that all these companies are starting to do online streaming, I was like, you guys are crazy. You guys are absolutely nuts. Like, it's one thing to be a media company, and then it's another thing to be a streaming company. And, you know, the big companies like YouTube and what's it called? Netflix, they're going to survive. Why? Because they've been in the game so long. They have an infrastructure. They have like everything going for them. And everybody uses Amazon AWS. So they're gonna survive by default because they are the ones who are supplying these services to everybody. So you're kind of stuck, right? So if you don't get those memberships, right, you're screwed because you are basically just paying for infrastructure, right? It's not like you had this in place before, right? And this is the thing that these gigantic billion-dollar companies forget, that it takes a lot of money to get these things in place. But the problem with the toys and the way they're structured, I've been hearing a lot of rumblings on many toy tuber channels right now that Hasbro and Mattel are in trouble, and to a certain degree, I get that. I understand to a certain degree that Mattel and Hasbro have a finite timeline based on children's attention span,
Mhm.
right? When we were kids, and this goes back to what Jorge was saying at the beginning. When we were kids, it wasn't uncommon for somebody to play with toys up until they were 13. Okay, and even then, people were looking at kids who were playing with toys at 13, like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You know what I mean? Like they were literally like, you should have stopped playing with that when you were 10, right? Grow up, get a girlfriend, go play some sports, right? When I was in high school, right, I remember one of my friends, he used to bring his G.I. Joes to school, and everybody would make fun of him, and I felt bad for the guy. You know what I mean? But I understood where he was coming from. But just because of peer pressure, you don't want to be, in that kind of, again, there's a whole bunch of freaking cliques. High school is a freaking vicious place, man. High school is fucking deadly. Like people don't understand just how much pressure there is in high school, right? Complex social lives, whatever. Anyway, when it comes to like, corporations and such, we got to understand that Mattel and Hasbro are the two biggest players in the market. They're billion-dollar companies, right?
Mhm.
So when they have to create a line of figures to release into the market, it has to sell, right? You can't take a risk on they have to figure something out which will sell, right? Because they have to produce in such high volumes.
Yep.
You're looking at 20,000 pieces minimum for any sort of line that comes out for Hasbro or Mattel, right? That's a lot of figures. When you think about that, that's a lot of fucking figures. If you take Super 7 as an example, I remember hearing Brian Flynn saying, if we make 4,000, I'm happy for the Thunder Tank. You know what I mean? Like, he said that, and I was like, that really gives you a stark contrast as to
Yep.
the economies of scale that we're dealing with here, right?
Mhm.
And people are like, why the hell are Super 7 figures $55? And it's like, well, they only sell 10,000 of them on average. You know what I mean? They're not selling 20,000, 40,000, 50,000.
Yeah.
They're not a big company. Then what about NECA? Well, NECA still sells $35, $45 figures. It's not that much different when you think about it. They're only a few dollars less. They just happen to be in Walmart and Target and all these other places, right?
Mhm.
But they still need to hit that minimum quantity order, and they're not producing 20,000. They're probably in the 30. Maybe they are, but like I said, like Mattel and Hasbro, they're in the 30, 40,000 depending on the run. You know what I mean? Depending on the character. But what's really killing all these stupid lines, particularly with Hasbro, in my opinion, and this is all opinion based. We have no real facts to back this up, and that's why sometimes I laugh. No, laugh is not the right word. Sometimes I chuckle at toy tubers who basically are like, "Oh, I know for a fact that this is what you have no idea."
Yeah.
Yeah.
No freaking clue.
Folks speak so definitively. Totally.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Even to a certain degree, Scott Knightley. It's like, yeah, you knew what that was 10 years ago, Scott. You have no idea what's going on right now.
Fair
And it's funny because he's like, oh, Master Universe will be dead in 2023. It's never going to come back to retail. It's in retail. They just announced another little wave to come to retail. Yeah, it's going to be a very specific retail, but it's coming to retail.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like companies now are taking more of the safer approach and doing like a crowdfunding kind of thing, like the HasLabs, or like how they did for the tank or for the Cat's Lair. That's a safer bet. Again, you're going to promote it. This is what we want to do. You're going to promote all the stretch goals, all this stuff. You're building hype for your product, and you set the bar, right?
Yep.
And like, let's say, when the Sentinel came out, I think with as many units as they sold, that right there was like $2 million worth of Sentinels, essentially, for everybody that backed it. So if you're going to put out something that's going to be that's in demand, it's going to definitely help generate. But yeah, again, it's like they have to make the ends meet with everything. So
I think overall, like when we look at the future, like what Brick was saying, it's I don't know, man. I don't know what to think. Like, I've talked about this a lot on previous shows. I feel like Carlos and I, we were talking about it, and he said something that I didn't quite agree with him. He told me a friend of his told him, someone that was privy to like data and all this stuff, and he did calculations that we as adult collectors represent 1% of the toy industry gains. And I find that so hard to believe because, and I know for a fact, because I've been at Toy Fair in New York many
To clarify, because you find it hard to believe because you think it's small or large? Like,
I think it's
the
too small.
1%. You think it's too small?
Yeah. Because here's my thing, like,
I said, finally, I'm the 1%. No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding.
And I'm saying, like, when I walk, let's say, nowadays, unfortunately, we don't have Toys R Us anymore.
Well, some people don't.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Grasses ain't all that green though, right? Because the prices are insane.
It's not. The prices are ridiculous.
But I think like when I walk in Target and I walk through the aisles, right? Whether it's on a weekday, it's on a weekend, I don't see kids getting toys. I don't see the same, enthusiasm and hype that I used to see, like in the 90s, even the early 2000s, with toys and children. I see, with having girls now in the house, they're all into the LOLs and the little mystery dollies that come in a bubble and stuff. But action figure aisle, dude, that's like predominantly, that stuff is being purchased by adult males.
Yeah.
You
got to think, like a lot of us collectors, as we age out or get to a point in life where we're no longer there, it's like, it's like our generation, I guess. It's very strange where we grew up, a lot of us, with the Saturday morning cartoons and everything like that, where now a lot of the stuff that kids are watching is on YouTube. They might not even watch regular cartoons like how we're used to and everything like that. It's completely different, with like the advertisements. We used to have, buy this new action figure, go to Children's Palace, Toys R Us, whatever the case. Like there was advertisement thrown at them all the time. And, now a lot of places are streaming, so there might not be that commercial, might not be that advertisement,
Like what you're saying, Steve, I feel that, come the time that we're like, I guess whenever we give up collecting, whether it be in our mid 60s or however far we want to push it, who's going to come back? Who's going to come and take our place? Right. Is it going to be people buying action figures? Because I'll tell you something that I've noticed, and that's a bubble that I think is going to burst pretty soon. But I've noticed that, I don't know what you would call them, is it like the Gen Zs or people that are in their 30-somethings or like mid-20s, they're like so crazily into pop Funko Pop figures. And there's this craze that I just can't get it. Yeah, it's cool. There's IP representation of anything under the sun, right? But how much can you get out of a bobblehead? And let me tell you, the funny thing is, dude, I see like big burly bikers, and like I was just doing a toy show this weekend, and it was a customs place where they do customs on Harleys and stuff like that. And the owner, he has like this entire office upstairs full of Funko Pops. And my thing is, like, being an action figure collector, I'm like, I don't get shit out of having a cute bobbleheaded version of my favorite character in a box, dude. Like, I don't get shit out of that. Or if I get an action figure, I could pose the hell out of it, put in a dynamic pose, do dioramas, do dynamic toy photography. But I've noticed that the younger generation is gravitating more towards that museum, bobblehead, pop stuff, and not action figures. So I was wondering, what do you guys think about that subject?
I mean, I'll just... I was just, like, it's different strokes for different folks. And I think the companies know this. They know, like, I'm going to define a market. I'm going to see if there's interest in that market. I'm going to grow that market. And so if the sense is like, man, I can't wrap my head around it because, like, why would you choose action figures over Funko Pops? You had to recognize that I don't think it's that. I think it's like maybe those people might never have even chosen action figures, but Pops works for them. And sure, there's overlap. So, I mean, I just to throw out there that I think there are a lot of people who do buy Pops that aren't necessarily would maybe never think twice about the action figure thing. If anything, it's an object that looks a particular way that they know, like maybe that's all they're looking for. It's no different than a person buying statues. And I think for me, I hear you, Jorge, but like, man, how many people are spending money on really expensive statues or busts? And that's just not me. I get it. I look at those things like, damn, those things are gorgeous. But for them, they may not be looking at, like, they may not be interested in highly posable dinosaurs. Like, you know, they might not want to see that broken up sculpt. So I think it's just, I think the Funko Pop thing is hit on an interest from a market, and it's sort of caught on in a way that I suspect not at all going to be one of those definitive toy tubers who knows for a fact. Just based on observation, like, you know, I do think that there are folks who are just like, man, those are cute, right? The whole kawaii thing, like there's that too, right? You mentioned young kids, your daughter's buying the LOL dolls. Like, that's a very different aesthetic that I think hits a particular market. Yeah. I don't necessarily think that's like the same kid who's going to go like, oh, you know, like if I weren't buying these, I'd be buying, I don't know, some other kid's toy, Squishmallows. Like, I just think that for whatever reason, that thing hit and it blew up in a big way. And I will say there's something about the Funko Pops that I think triggers like kind of just collecting period. Like, people collect cards, or like I see a lot of crossover, at least the people that I know that are really into Funko Pops that like don't really get the action figure thing, but there's an overlap for them between those and collectible card games and collecting those kinds of things. So I don't know. My sense is that there might just be different markets. But to go back, well, I'll come back to it. And I think, Aaron, you were going to say something about that too.
Yeah. So, I mean, different, like, again, that's a different price point compared to, we're spending what, 20, 30 bucks for an action figure, where Funko Pop 10, maybe 20. I was at New York Comic-Con a few weeks ago, and I feel like a lot of those people that are collectors, there was a huge market where people that were buying strictly just to flip, because the aftermarket also is so through the roof with those that people really don't realize that. Yeah. And then when I'm talking about, if I have like a posable action figure, or I have a little Funko Pop, I think that the mass appeal for the Funko Pop is they make Funko Pops of everything. Any favorite TV show, any cartoon, anything like that, they have their hand on it. So I feel like that's a more widespread appeal, and it's more like, oh, socially acceptable, because like, oh, you like Game of Thrones, oh, hey, this is, you know, this, oh, that's really cool. And I feel like there's more of that common ground when they're looking at a Funko Pop compared to, you know, a 1/6 scale action figure or something along those lines, you know. And again, price point as well too, you know, 10, 20 bucks for a Funko Pop, or if you're spending, you know, 40 or however much on a 1/6 figure, you know, people are like, you spent that much on that? I mean, even though it looks great, again, people sometimes can't justify the price point, you know, where with a $10 one, it's a little bit easier to swallow, I guess.
But do you
what do you guys think?
Like in general, would you guys say if we would have to flash forward, I don't know, 20 years from now, what'll last longer, Funko Pops or action figures?
So here's the thing though. I think a lot of us are already noticing just by going. Well, okay, I think there's a really easy metric. Okay, I'll use this as a very easy example about what I'm observing. And again, this is all observation. There's no numbers here, but technically we can get into some other news that happened with Funko earlier and some other things. But just generally speaking, and I'm talking about literally generally, because again, we don't have any real numbers. But when I first started toy hunting, okay, which was about 3 or 4 years ago, at the height of the pandemic, as you guys already know, I walked into Toys R Us, and there were 3 walls, literally an entire freaking section of Funko Pops. There was literally one gigantic wall and another 2 gigantic walls, would be equivalent of like 2 different aisleways of Funko Pops at Toys R Us. Okay, and even some of the actual aisleways themselves, you know, the the standees, where they just like the shelves which are in the middle of the aisles, even they were filled to the brim with Funko Pops. Fast forward to 2023, there's half a wall. Half a wall.
Yep.
Okay. And from the time that I started to the time now, I slowly saw that progressional decline. Okay. And ask anybody right now how enthusiastic they are about Funko Pops. The people who were like hardcore Funko Pops when they first started, it's amazing the response you might get from somebody. Mad Hatter reviews. His whole channel started with Funko Pops. Do you see any Funko Pop reviews that he has on his channel anymore? No, right? The fad, and I'm gonna say it this way: the fad of Funko Pops, the fascination. Sorry, not the fad. The fascination with Funko Pops is weaning, like to such a staggering degree, right? It's scary. Like I've seen those gigantic Funkos, like they're like 14 inches or whatever the hell. They're on clearance all the time. So Toys R Us has clearances on Funko Pops every day, right? It's scary how what's been going on with Funko right now, right? And here in Canada, it's $14 a Funko Pop, sometimes $20 a Funko Pop, right? Again, it's the difference in dollar prices, but the value of the dollar. But what has longevity? I was making fun of I was making fun of Funkos a long time ago, mainly because I don't like Funkos. But I was making fun of Funkos, saying that they're going to be the rubber ducky of the in another 10 years. Beanie Babies. So that's probably a better example. But they're going to be floating in the river. The New York rubber ducky race. It's going to be the New York Funko Pop race. I'm telling you, it's easier to track. But I'm joking, of course. But there's a reason why Funko has bought Mondo. There's a reason why Funko is now actively buying up companies. They got to figure something out. They got to figure it out fast, right? They got to do something quick, right? Because, I think everyone here has probably heard, or at least might have heard, of the fact that they literally destroyed or just buried $10 million worth of Funko Pop, something like that, something absolutely insane. Right?
It costs more. It costs more to store that stuff than to keep it. So they decided to get rid of it. But yeah, I think if you look at it, you step out and you try to get into these people's shoes, the Funko Pop collectors. I guess the uniformity of the collection, everything is in the same package, window box, it's all in the same style. Everybody's got the beady eyes. So there's a uniformity where all your brands, all your IPs, all your favorite shows can come together in that one universe. I could see where that has had mass appeal, but I just don't. For me, I've owned Pops. I guilty as charged. I've had certain Pops here and there. At one point, I worked at a collectibles store. And one of the reasons I started hating Pops so much is because the Pop collector, which I don't want to say everybody's like this, but the ones I was privy to would come in and they're like, hey, do you have so-and-so Pop? And I'll be like, yeah, hold on, give me a second. Let me grab it for you. I'll bring it out to them. And then they literally, it's like if they bring out like a pair of white gloves and a microscope and they're just like checking the box and making sure it doesn't have creases. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, do you realize how thin the cardboard on these damn things is? These things pristine. So that was something that annoyed me so much.
Sure.
And it was that Pop collector mentality where it's like, oh, do you have this Pop? But also, oh, but no. Can you check if you have more in the back? Because this one has this little crease right here. Imagine if we did that shit at Target with like a Marvel Legends. It'd be like, hey,
You guys don't? Oh.
But I was just gonna say, but do we not
Yeah.
think that there are toy action figure collectors that
I'm-
do
I'm
the
with-
same
I'm
thing,
with-
or
I'm with-
comic
I'm
book
with that.
collectors? Yeah.
There are-
When I was mint on card, I was kind of OCD about the
I
card.
totally
But
agree.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Like, okay, the packaging for a Marvel Legends, right? The card stock, it's a pretty hard card stock. You know, with exception to, like, for example, the retro GI Joe line from Walmart, right? Those cards were like as thin as paper almost. I don't know what they were thinking, but when you look at a Marvel Legends right now, you know, Joes are boxed, so it's like it's very rare. Yeah, sometimes I think it's almost retaliatory, where when you see all these smashed boxes, I feel like it's either the stock guy or a random collector is like, ha ha ha, I'm gonna screw all these people and just crush all these boxes. Because sometimes you find it's like this one particular figure has slashes across each box or is smashed to smithereens, and I'm just thinking like this couldn't have come like this from Hasbro, you know.
No.
But
Jorge, that's never the case. It's what happens in the back. Okay, a lot of people look at Amazon and look at Walmart and they look at everything and they're like, why are these things so destroyed? Come on, we're talking about it's gone through 3 different hands before it actually gets to you, right?
Mhm.
Like I know I used to work when I was younger before when I was working through college and trying to make some money. I worked in a shipping yard. Okay, I actually was one of the pickers on the line, and we don't care about this stuff. We want to clock in. We want to freaking. I left my brain at the door, and I did my job and I left. I don't care. And you know what? You know how we open boxes? We take a box cutter. We grab the box as fast as we can. We zip.
Nice
We don't
across.
care. We do not care.
Yeah.
We zip it up. It says right on the box. It says right on the top of the box. Do not cut with a box cutter. Fuck you. We literally cut with a box cutter because we have no time.
no,
We have no time.
I worked at Toys R Us too for a few, and I know what you mean. But I mean, like things like, for example, and I've seen this and I couldn't believe it. Sometimes Amazon or Target, they've literally just slapped a label on a package and shipped it out.
Yeah, I've
They don't even
received
put it in a bag.
I've received that. That was a policy. That was a policy enacted by. That's a policy. That was a policy enacted by Amazon to reduce waste. That was a waste initiative. And the way I get around that now is I ask for a gift receipt, because with a gift receipt, 9 times out of 10 to put it in a box, and that sorry, 8 times out of 10 they'll put it in a box, 9 times out of 10 they'll put it in a bag, and or sorry, 2 times out of 10 they'll put it in a bag, but generally speaking they won't slap a label on it. But it's a luck of the draw now, right? And all in the effort to save money. It has nothing to do with the environment. Don't let anybody freaking fool you. It's about saving that box.
Yeah.
Cost them like half a cent, and if they can save that half a cent on the 60,000 thing, they're making money. Okay, so it's not about saving the environment. It's not about reducing waste. It's not about that. Okay, it's about I just have to put a label on this, and we save 0.6 cents. Do it. Because we need
Perfect example is $300 Jaga, right? It no longer has the shipping carton. So Super 7 decided, how important is it for collectors to have a shipping carton? And it's funny because Brian was like, well, if it's being shipped from us, we're going to make sure that you get it intact. I got my Jaga, thankfully, he arrived well, but there was just one little bubble pack in there, and he was just floating around in the box. So
they didn't put the mailer.
No, there's no more mailers. They did away with mailers.
Since when? I mean,
Eggman had a talk with Brian about a week ago, and they touched on that subject. And Brian said they took a collective decision to, instead of hiking up the price of the figures, to just get rid of the mailers. So there's no more mailers.
I mean, they're the only ones who are doing it anyway. I think Mattel is doing it still with their Mattel Creations line.
Mattel Creations stuff, yeah.
But that makes sense because, again, like those are collector. They're the ones who pioneered that anyway, right?
Yeah.
The mailer box came from Mattel. a Matty Collector
Classic,
was the
yeah.
first one to do it, right? So in that sense, it still makes sense. But I don't know if anybody ordered the latest Lady Slither. Lady Slither is ridiculous. I don't know if does anybody know what I'm talking about?
I do. I just haven't opened it yet. So.
Okay, well here's the thing, Brick. Jorge, did you order Lady Slither? I don't know.
I didn't.
You didn't? And Brick, you ordered it, right?
I have it here. You want me to open it to demo whatever you're going to tell us?
I can do it.
I just haven't done it.
I'll do it. You know,
it's not. Yeah, it's not so much that.
Oh shit! It's right here, actually. All right, check this out. So this is funny. Okay, so here's the mailer. Okay. All right. So there's the mailer. Now, you'd think, okay, this is protecting something this is protecting something awesome, and it is. It's protecting something absolutely awesome. So here is, look at that. Isn't that gorgeous?
Yeah,
it is.
That's freaking amazing, right? Now, when you look at this, and there's a tape right here at the flap, right? You think to yourself, hey, that looks freaking great. That's amazing. It's a box, right? You guys, can you agree that that's a box?
Yeah.
It's in fact a box. Yeah.
It's actually not a box.
Oh.
Believe it or not, this is not a box.
Oh, the whole thing unfolds.
No. It's not even that. It's a slipcover. There's a freaking hole at the bottom of this freaking. This is ridiculous. What? Like they couldn't have given us the other. This to me, this is stupid. Okay.
Really?
Every other one of their freaking special edition things has been a box. This is the one thing that's not a. This is a slipcover. This is ridiculous.
Was Vicron also? Yeah, I'm forgetting how Vicron came.
Vicron had it's
full on box.
Yeah, it's just I don't.
Well, that's actually, it's funny you're talking about it in the context of Super 7. That's very Super 7, right? It's the same thing. You got the outside mailer, you open it up, there's a slip cover, and then there's the package inside. Yeah. So then the box for the actual figure is just a standard.
Yeah, like we still have the slip pretty much.
Yeah.
The slip cover is here, the figure's underneath. So this is an external. The mailer was just something extra to protect the figure in transit, Yeah. But yeah, I get what Jay's saying. For me, like
I didn't know that was happening. I thought it was going to be a full on box, or like you said, particularly with the Mattel Creations stuff, they've gotten it with Vicron, with Motherboard. It's kind of a little bit more prestige packaging, right? Sometimes there's like you open it up and it's a nice display. So that one, it's essentially just like a basic thing that would have been in retail with a slip cover.
Right. Well, here's the other thing about that. People have been discovering. I don't know if you guys have seen this yet. People have been discovering Ultimates at G.I. Joe Ultimates at Walmart now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right, but their slip covers are missing.
Mm-hmm.
This so Jorge, if you want,
I never clocked that.
Jorge,
That's right.
Bring up your Jaga.
That's right.
Grab your Jaga. Remove the slip cover.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like this in the store.
That's how it shows up in the store.
That's interesting.
So they don't even have this.
No, you don't even. I don't know if it's a conscious decision or not, but guess what? People want to see the figure.
Yeah.
Plastic packaging, right? And they don't want to get. So all of a sudden, everything's going cyclical, right? Hasbro experimented with it. It failed, right? And now everyone's like, well, we want to put Ultimates in the stores, but how do we sell these figures? Because nobody can tell what's inside. It's just got a nameplate. Right. If you turn around the slipcover, it's just the Thundercats symbol, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. That's very unique to Super 7, right? Because they've marketed directly to collectors who kind of know what it is that they're getting. So they don't, but at retail space, you're trying to attract like people who walk by or whatever. Yeah. So I need to see that thing in there and be like, oh, what's that? But like when you hold that thing, it's like, I know what's in that. But again, that's a tiny market. The average retailer, which I think goes back to Jorge, the question around like 1%, right? It is small, like especially as you drill down to those like when I look at Super 7 in particular, the way that they've established themselves as a brand and as a company has always been sort of as that sort of like boutique, like at least for the longest time, it was like we're doing brands and toys that no one has thought about in the longest time. And like no one has made, right? So it's like niche upon niche already, right? And then so they're like, well, we're doing like that, they were initially started as a magazine that's all about like Sofubi stuff, like real like niche collector mentality. So it's like, well, we're going to create packaging that's very niche collector mentality. like, ooh, foil cover, embossed or debossed artwork, and like, so you're opening it up like it's this like ooh experience. And then now what we're seeing is that IP culture, that brand kind of meshing with the Walmart retail culture, and like Walmart's like, nah, dude, I need to see this thing. People need to walk by, see it. That's how they buy.
Yeah.
What I wonder is like, so are they making special deals with Walmart so that they are like ahead of time shipping them that way, or is like some Walmart worker having to go like, okay, cool, like just tossing these things?
Right?
So here's what's funny about one of those posts that I saw.
Uh-huh.
I saw that it was in a cellophane bag. It wasn't on the shelf by itself. It was actually hanging off a tab like a cellophane bag. I was like, what is this? Is this Goodwill? Like this is getting ridiculous. I wonder if I can find the post, because when you see it, it's actually kind of shocking. But here's the question I have really. You're losing value on these figures.
Yeah.
Because that slipcover, if we talk about value, that's about $1. You just lost $1 of value from the Super 7 Direct version, right? You're not getting the actual version, right? Because you're paying for all of that.
Oh, you mean you as a consumer?
Yeah, you're missing out on some value.
But I think they're, by being in Walmart, by putting a G.I. Joe figure in Walmart, their mentality is, oh, we're putting it in Walmart, which is going to have a bunch of more eyeballs and people walking down and buying stuff. They're not necessarily going after the people who are like, ooh, or that collector who's looking for that perfect pristine thing. They're kind of counting on the people. It's like, oh yeah, I remember G.I. Joe. Oh, what? These are big G.I. Joe toys. Those are bigger than the ones that I saw. Those are cool. Let me grab that. Who aren't necessarily going like, I need the packaging, and aren't thinking the value. Like yeah, that's what I suspect. So they're trading the notion of like retail at Walmart will allow us volume buyers that may not have, a higher volume, new audience essentially.
More exposure.
Is it a different price point too, or is it the same price point across all boards?
There's the thing. I don't know what the prices are. Like that's the one thing I didn't see the prices on the pegs, so I really don't know. I would imagine there's still.
Because I wouldn't pay $55 for, for example, for Cobra Commander without the slipcover. I'd rather go and buy from Big Bad and get a slipcover.
Okay, but that's because right?
Exactly.
These are for casual people who are walking by, right?
Yeah. So they probably don't carry as much stock, And is it maybe in that adult collector section by electronics rather than in the actual toy aisle, So maybe like that NECA approach where they have like that adult collector section.
This is officially like, again, as you pointed out, this is me supposing based on no data, but what I do know is that recently we did hear like a press release saying, so-and-so investment company or the investors are putting money into Super 7, and Brian has a statement about like, yeah, we're looking to grow. So like that signals to me, just like any other company, this is a company that's trying to figure out what's going to happen my next 10, 20, 30 years. How am I going to position our brand and our company? How am I going to bring in these investors? Because the investors aren't going to invest a ton of money for you to keep doing the same thing. Right. So I suspect this is probably all in relation to that. It's like, well, I'm sure. Okay, here's an infusion of money. Okay, great. Where are we going next? And it makes sense to me to explore with a brand like G.I. Joe, that there's another line in classifieds that's being sold heavily at retail and at Walmart. They have exclusives for that investment company and or whoever's like, making decisions with Super 7 to say like, well, could we do that? Could we go after that market and gain more sales and then grow the brand?
Yeah, it's enlarging the footprint.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. Maybe that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a kind of we're seeing Super 7 in its awkward teen stage, right? Where they're trying to try something new and grow. And I feel like it's so like, as someone who's been aware of that brand in particular back when they just had a magazine and like when they first opened their stores here in San Francisco, I've seen a lot of growth. And I'll tell you, like the biggest sort of growing pains and awkward period so far has been when they first got the Masters of the Universe license and took that over, because the collector sort of like section that they had, or the collector audience that they had buying their stuff was very much like, yeah, you know, it was a little bit of like an artsy vibe, maybe a little hipster vibe of just kind of like, oh yeah, this is cool. Yeah, I remember that. I want to see that. Oh yeah, here's $55. I get it. It's a prestige thing. Just like I'm going to buy a poster from you that like is a piece of paper. It's what, $2, but I'm going to give you $20 or $30 or whatever it is, right? Or a T-shirt. Like man, you're paying what for T-shirts? But that was what they were doing. That's part of the brand. So then when you get to Motu, like there's a lot more eyeballs, especially coming from like a hardcore fan base that was used to dealing with Mattel and Matty Creation, like expecting a certain level of service and just continuation of the, you know, the philosophy behind the brand, what figures are going to come out, etc.
Right.
And then once you got into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Silverhawks, like think of and Power Rangers, think about the scrutiny that came with each of those brands for Super 7. Like, man. And I think they were trying a thing. I think they were trying to grow in a particular way. Whereas when I look at the things that I love about Super 7, particularly the ones that I was like, oh yeah, that's great, like the Metaluna Mutant, which came out recently, or the Worst figures, I'm just like, these are weird, quirky things that maybe no one else would actually do. And I love that about Super 7, because that's actually, I think, truer to what they used to do. Or like the musicians, that Biggie figure looks sick. We're always talking about like, oh, human sculpts, they can't do it. And you look at that Biggie figure, it's like, damn, like where did that come from? And again, I think it's, I think there's a lot of things that I don't know about, and none of us really knows about, in terms of like, what's it like to work with a major brand? What's it like to deal with a licensor approval versus like, hey, I got to deal with ODB's like people. Yeah, cool. They've never done toys before. Yeah, we'll approve. Like, oh yeah, no, that looks dope. Cool. Versus, oh, well, you know, in order to do a Ninja Turtles, you have to like, oh, that's not the right look we're going for. And I'm sure it's just very different. So,
well, I mean,
I feel like they're in an awkward growing up period, I think is what we're happening. I don't know what it's going to look like coming out of it. And I do know that a lot of fans are understandably soured by the whole. I know there's a lot of really like people who really are frustrated with Super 7. I get it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's kind of where I'm sort of seeing where the brand is going. But
they're definitely growing a lot. I mean, just the sheer reveal of that Cat Slayer, it's like, holy wow shit. Mattel would never have done a Cat Slayer.
Yeah.
You know, I know they had plans, but they would have never done it that way. It would have been smaller. It would have been like with the mountains being on the side and stuff like that. So we're coming close on the 2-hour mark, and you know, I really wanted to thank you guys for being with me here today. Unfortunately, my buddy Carlos is out sick, but one of the things I wanted to mention is our friends from Sparrow Toys and Diamond have sent a lot of cool stuff. So I'm going to be making an announcement, but these are just some of the prizes that are going to be a big giveaway to celebrate the 20th episode of Toy Addicts Anonymous. And again, these are just some of the prizes. I have some more that I don't have on hand right now, but I'll be making that announcement soon. You know, it's basically going to be probably like, you know, just a like and follow, comment, and then I'll do the live drawing in one of our future episodes coming up. But yeah, it's been awesome having you guys here. I just want to do go around and just make sure that we know where the audience can find you guys on social media. So let's start with you, Steve. Where can people find you?
Steve Mank, Articulated Times on Instagram. Primarily Instagram. I had it at one point on TikTok, but I don't do any dances anymore. So
no. Come on. Yeah, I still use the TikTok, but I still haven't figured out that damn app. It's fun. Yeah. I have like almost 4,000 followers, and I go live and there's crickets. You know, I just don't sit there and lick and act like I'm eating fictitious stuff. Right. Like all these females do. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. It's a very different culture. I'm not quite sure what my audience is, what they're looking at, but yeah, I'm on TikTok. I'm on all socials. But Brick, where can people find you?
On Instagram, it's brick.something. And I've been trying to, get the shorts up there too. I've kind of shifted that a little bit to kind of mimic the shorts that are going on here at YouTube. But YouTube, I'm also doing the weekly news Sundays at 4:30 to roughly 5:45 Pacific time, so that folks can go off and check out some other streams, which I know, like whether it's Hella Dope or Geek Dad Life, there's a lot of good stuff. Just shelve it. We just hit our 600, so I'm like you, Jorge. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do a thing for 500, man. I'm so bad. That was 2 months ago. I have the prizes and everything. I just haven't, I don't know. I kind of got a little bit anxious on the giveaway. I just need to do it. So then all of a sudden 600 crept up on me. And so I was like, what can I do? I just want to thank folks who've been here. So I made a bunch of these stickers and I'm like, hey, just tell me hey, I want to give them away just to I'm putting them on everything. I'm going to run out just because I'm putting it on my own stuff. But those are the main places, I'm I'm in the same boat. I'm celebrating what we're doing. I love connecting with folks. I want to, give them something neat. And, that's all. I'm having fun and probably buying way too many toys.
That's never a bad thing.
These folks. Blessing and a curse.
As long as bills are paid, that's not a bad thing. Jay, well, I know you're getting a little cough spill there, but when you can,
I hope you get better, Jay. Man, I'm so not used to hearing you so quiet and subdued, and I know. I hope you're feeling good.
Yeah,
man.
I'm always the bag of hot air, so no, I get it.
No.
First of all, I want to thank Jorge and Toy Addicts for inviting all of us. Congratulations on 20 episodes. It's a big deal. It really is.
Thanks, man.
Guys, definitely subscribe to Toy Addicts. They do a lot of great content here. They speak from the heart, and they echo a lot of what we as toy collectors want to say, but oftentimes can't. Because again, it's a small community, and there are things which it gets around. You know what I mean? So it's always refreshing to see toy tubers who are honest and speak from the heart, and of course are passionate about what they do. So huge thanks to Toy Addicts for being here. Jorge, thank you so much, and congratulations to Carlos. Of course, Carlos and me, we're dying as it is right now. We're old men, so basically, I was the stupid one. I came on here. I'm dying on screen, so he's avoiding that. He's the smart one. He's trying to actually get better, right? Again, I can't resist. When Toy Addicts calls, I have to be here, right? So very important. For me,
I showed up, but it was late.
Exactly.
Yeah, man, Steve
knows. Steve understands, right? He gets it. Right? Look, we're all toy collectors here, and of course, it's one of our privilege for us to actually share our passions with you guys and being here tonight. So thank you so much, Jorge, and of course, congratulations to Toy Addicts. Let's see the next 20. Let's see the next 100, and of course, congratulations to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much, man. And I do see that you did find that. You found that picture, right?
Yeah. If you want to throw it up, I'll
for sure. I'm so curious to see this.
Yeah. So on a whole bunch of different Facebook pages,
that's the SDCC exclusive too,
right? Yeah, that's the thing, right? It's on several places. They've actually attached a stick tab.
Okay.
So it's just a stick hang tab.
So
right?
It's on a peg.
Yeah, it's on a peg, right? These are not the prices down here. Somebody just grabbed them, put them on to get a better picture. Here you can actually see the price. So it's exactly the same thing. It's $54.99. Okay. So it's no difference in price, but you can see behind there's another one, right? But it seems to be very consistent. It's either Snake Eyes and the anniversary version of the bat. The SDCC exclusive version of the bat, which just kind of makes you scratch your head and saying, how many of these things did they actually have now that they're coming to retail, right? These are supposed to be exclusives, right? Or it's Cobra Commander. Now, again, here's another one. There you can see the tab. So you can actually see, I don't know if you guys saw it. There's the tab. The hang tab is right there. So they're just literally putting on a stick hang tab, and that's it's pretty crazy. And then the other one that I thought we had it. It's this one here. The other one is, of course, Cobra Commander. So yeah, fascinating how they're doing these things, but all equally as fascinating that they're not giving you the slipcover. That's something I wish I had seen, the one with the bag. I was looking for it desperately, but I guess we'll have to. You just have to take my word for it. There was a bag, but yeah, just fascinating, absolutely fascinating to see how these things work out. But you know what? At the end of the day, from what I can observe, congratulations to Super 7. They're getting major influx of investment from a major company. I believe it's an insurance company, I think, or something like that. It's pretty crazy, but that's been in the news lately. And congratulations to Brian. He's steadily moved the ship forward, and now what I'm hoping for is if they actually are getting investment from different companies, I'm hoping that the prices will come down. Right? I'm hoping that that'll translate into larger volume and a retail partner that will actually bring down the prices. Right? It happened to NECA. NECA used to be $60. Now they're down to like $35-$40. Right?
Maybe they'll
I'm hoping
introduce a new collection called Not So Ultimates, and they won't be $55. I'll be like half Ultimates.
My Ultimates. Yeah.
Technically, their reaction line has been in stores for the last 2 years, right? So they're making waves, they're making headway.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that the Ultimates are now starting to make their way in. But we are now, just as Jorge has pointed out, we're going to see a dynamic shift in the way the packaging design is going to be done. Right, we're probably not going to see any more mailers. The slip cover is probably going to disappear from now on because they're not going to do two different types. They're not going to have one type for retail and one type for collectors. That's not going to happen.
No,
right?
So it's going to be universal across the board. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, guys, it's been super fun. Thank you so much for joining me today, and looking forward to. Oh, we lost Steve.
Yeah. I just pointed at him because I was like, "You're next," and he disappeared. Sorry if I did that. Hey Jay, you got to get some calamansi juice, man. You got to take care of that,
dude. So yeah, it's
Vicks on the
feet. One thing I wanted to mention, I want to say next week. Yeah, I believe next week is Legion's Con in New Jersey. So Carlos is going to be there. I'll be there in spirit, but we're going to be doing a live stream where it's going to be Carlos in New Jersey at Legion's Con, and I'll be here. So I'll be able to enjoy in that manner, the experiences and the reveals and all the stuff, and be able to geek out with them about the show and what's revealed there. So looking forward to that. Definitely want to go next year, and yeah, man, just whenever you guys want to hang, it's always the more the merrier. Every Thursday, 8 p.m. The time. And these guys.
If you want to collab on some of that Legion's Con stuff, Thanos, who's in the chat too, we were talking about, hey, let's do the Sad Boy watches Legion's Con from afar stream. So if you want to collab anything like that, that's what we're going to be doing.
Adam's here, and he's actually asking if you're going to give away a laptop.
Yeah. So I saw that, but this is property of my school district, so no, Adam. But sorry to clarify. I don't know how you all do things.
Lost you there for a minute.
Sorry, man.
I was literally just pointing like, "Oh, you're next," and you disappeared. I was like,
"Oh!" You got so excited, we just hit disconnect, leave.
Yeah, I'm like, no, I'm kidding. Sorry. I hit the wrong button and it just all went black. I'm like, whoa, hang on.
So Steve, I was just talking about the Legion's Con live stream that we're going to be doing next week, and I'm pretty sure you're going to be there with Carlos.
Yeah,
boss is calling me. So
see,
that's my cue. My daughter's like, Daddy, she's breaking down the door. But we'll do all this again soon, and definitely tune in next Thursday. We're gonna do an impromptu live from Legion's Con on Saturday. So
perfect.
All right, guys, have a good night, and thanks for joining.
Thanks for having us, man. Thank you. Congratulations. Great to meet you, Steve.
Good night, everybody.
High five. Bye, guys.
Bye.